Good evening to everyone. 7 o'clock, so we'll get started. First, happy Thanksgiving. We rarely have this the night before Thanksgiving, but that's what worked out well this year. But I imagine we'll have a smaller group. People traveling and doing Thanksgiving celebration things. It's good to come together. The theme, obviously, is going to be gratitude and Thanksgiving. Aaron has asked me to talk for a few minutes. It's hard for me to channel and then come in and speak as Barbara. So Aaron has asked me to say some things in the beginning that would be perhaps better said in the middle, but we'll put them into the beginning. So Aaron wants me to share a bit with you before he starts. Whatever has the nature to arise has the nature to cease. When the conditions are present, it will arise. Sometimes it will be pleasant, sometimes unpleasant, depending on the conditions. And then when the conditions cease, whatever arose will cease. No matter how pleasant it is, we can't hold on to it. No matter how unpleasant it is, it doesn't cease until the conditions that brought it to us cease. If we're determined to hold on to that which is pleasant and keep away that which is unpleasant, we're really going to suffer. No surprise to most of you who have been through this a lot with me before. When we can open our hearts to things as they are, it doesn't mean it's going to be pleasant, but usually we can find something that's of value in it. So Aaron asked me to talk a bit about losing my hearing. 52 years ago now, 53 almost. Suddenly, when my first child was born, and most of you know this, I had normal hearing. I knew nothing about deafness. But apparently the blood vessels that carry nerves, oxygen to the nerves, became constricted. There was no oxygen to the nerves, so the nerves died. So there I was with a newborn infant, and suddenly not only deaf, but it affected the semicircular canal nerves that affect balance. I was very dizzy. And then as the dizziness calmed down, I still had no balance. Because no middle ear balance, I still have no balance. That's how it is. I still can't hear either. So I really suffered in the beginning. It was so hard. I couldn't hear. I was so dizzy I couldn't even read. I was so angry, feeling so much pain. And I thought something is wrong with me. I don't mean deafness. I mean something, I'm being punished for something. Something is bad about me. I took it as a spiritual issue. I thought it was karma. What have I done so terrible that I would be deaf? All the anger at it in the world did not change the fact that I was deaf and that I had no balance. So I struggled with this for quite a bit. And then there came a point where I was just in so much pain, and I prayed for help. I don't know what kind of help I was expecting, but when I came into the living room to meditate the next morning, there was this presence in the room. I could feel his energy. I could see him. I went out of the room fast. I said, either I'm hallucinating or it's real, and I don't know which is more scary. So I had a cup of tea. I went back into the living room. This presence was still there. Beautiful face, deep eyes, high cheekbones, long silver hair and beard. I said, who are you and why are you here? He said, you asked for help. How are you going to help me? He said, well, let's look at the suffering. He said, you are suffering. Let's look at the causes of the suffering. I said, I'm suffering because I'm deaf. He said, no. When you're walking alone in the woods, you're not suffering. You're only suffering when you're grasping to hear. Wow, I had never seen it that way before. And this was a couple of years into the deafness. It wasn't immediate. So he began to teach me. And I began to see the truth of what he said. That the suffering was not because I was deaf, but because of how much grasping there was to hear, because of how strong the aversion was to being deaf. And he finally said to me, what if you just allow yourself to be deaf? Try it for a couple of weeks and just see how it feels to be deaf. I said, I already know how it feels. I hate it. He said, you're not giving it a chance. Try it. Well, in the interval, I had found some things that were convenient about the deafness. I like it kind of quiet. I like to meditate. I like things peaceful. I like to walk in the woods or sit by a lake. But my husband is a big football fan, University of Michigan football. So I would go to football games with him, and we had a deal. I could bring a book with me and I could read, or I could close my eyes and meditate. Do you know anybody else who can sit in a football stadium with 100,000 people screaming and have it silent when they close their eyes? Thank you. Thank you. I never thought I could say thank you to the deafness. Yeah, this was just a start. This deafness has been a profound teacher to me for now 53 years. I'm sure it's been, my deafness has been a teacher to you too. So many people tell me that. It took me a lot of time. Not that first year, certainly, and not for another 10 years after that. But finally, I was able to say, thank you, deafness. Thank you for what you're teaching me. Thank you. The things that seem like they will be huge loss, tragedies in our lives. And at first, there certainly is grief about fear. This is genuine. This is our experience. But eventually, we can look back and say, thank you, teacher. And this has been so much a part of my life and so much the heart of what I teach and what Aaron teaches through me. Almost 6 years ago, my previously very healthy husband had a major stroke. I don't think Hal or I are ready yet to fully say thank you, teacher. But we certainly can see the power of what we've learned. If I could change it, I would change it. I can't say that about my deafness. If I had a choice right now, you can hear if you want to. I would say whatever is for the highest good. I'm happy to hear. I don't need to hear. But about Hal's stroke, if I could say magic, snap my fingers and all the effects, his paralysis, his aphasia, all of this is gone. Sure, I want that. But Hal and I talk, and it's hard to talk to him. I have to ask careful questions where he can give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or maybe yes, no, maybe. And we talk. And I ask him, are you learning a lot? Yes. Have you become more peaceful about the stroke? Yes. And so forth. How can I help you? And by answering, I can only do it with yes and no questions. And this is to the man who was one of the most talkative people that you've ever, those who know him know. He talked. He loved to talk. It's been very hard for him not to be able to talk. He's learned how to be still, how to be quiet. He's deepened in so many ways. His heart has opened. And my heart has opened. A lot of grief in the beginning, and we did not expect him to live. But now it's almost 6 years, and in part thanks to many of you who give donations to pay caregivers that keep him alive, because without caregivers, I couldn't take care of him. But he has a good life at home. He had a friend here today, and we watched a movie. They watched a movie. And friends come and visit him. People are so loving to him. And I see the ways it's helped him to learn to value himself, to see that being the talkative life of the party guy is not why people love him, that there's something much deeper in him that people love. And so people come and spend time with him, even though he can't talk and he can't walk, but they spend time with him because his eyes light up and he has a beautiful smile. And people are moved by it. I can't say we wanted this stroke. Thank you, stroke. Thank you for all the learning that it has brought Hal and me, and the ways that it's connected our hearts at a deeper level. The ways that it's helped me to deepen in compassion. Finally, jumping up to this past summer, many of you know I had a very serious foot infection in the bone of my foot. If it did not heal, they were going to have to amputate my foot, maybe part way up my leg even. It was scary. I had to stay off my foot, so I spent 4 months really just sitting with my leg in the air. And I could walk with my right foot normal and just pressure on the heel of this foot away from the wound. And only walking 5-10 feet, really no walking for 4 months. I'm a meditation teacher. What does a meditation teacher do when she can't walk? So I spent countless hours sitting on my very beautiful deck. Small deck, not big space, a small garden. a small, like a 6-foot pond with a little waterfall, but very beautiful. And I spent a lot of time just sitting there and meditating. The question was, what have I been running from? Now I can't run, I can't even walk. And it was so hard in the beginning to sit still. Thank you, teacher. Thank you for this really enforced confinement. Talk about a meditation retreat and having to just sit. 4 months of just sitting was tough. But my heart opened to myself in new ways. And I found such a much greater depth of compassion. Someone was speaking at the beginning of having found me in Deep Spring through my friend Carla. Many of you have read the Aaron Kuo dialogues. Carla was such a dear friend, and I miss her. I learned so much from her. I will tell you a brief story that when I first met Aaron, he told me to find a book about channeling. Someone had told me, what you're doing is channeling. And I said, what's channeling? So Aaron said, go find a book, go to a bookstore and find a book about channeling. So I went to a bookstore in Ann Arbor, small bookstore. And I asked at the desk for a book about channeling. And they brought me up a few channeled books, including the raw material and something from a manual, channeled material. And Aaron said, no, I do not want you to read channeling, because then you won't know that what you're hearing from me, you're truly hearing. You'll think you're just remembering it from the book. No, I don't want you to read that. So I said again at the bookstore, don't you have any book about channeling? No. I went back to look on the shelves. I came back up to the front desk, and sitting there on the counter was Carla's book, Channeling Handbook. I picked it up. I didn't know of Carla. I picked it up. I said, this looks like just what I need. And the bookstore owner looked at the book, looked at me and said, we don't carry that book. That wasn't in the store. So I said, I want to buy it. He said, I can't sell it to you. It's not my book. But the two of us were the only ones in the store, and no one else had come into the store. So he handed me the book, and I took it home, and I read the book, and I wrote to Carla. And she said, the first thing she did was, because she could not type well because she had such bad arthritis in her hands, rheumatism in her hands. So she sent me an audio tape. So I wrote her back and I said, remember, I'm deaf. Oh, so she can't write and I can't speak. My, at that point, probably 10-year-old, 12-year-old, transcribed, listened to the tapes and transcribed it. For those of you who know my son, David, this was David. I think part of what got him into his life's work was transcribing Carla's tapes as a 10-year-old and the interplay between us. And then we started to call each other. And Davy, you're my older son, what's on for me? Or sometimes Hal, what's on for me? Because no deaf telephone in those days. So anyhow, within a few months, I went down to Kentucky and spent a week with Carl, and we loved each other, Carl and Jim. And yeah, that's how that happened. We get what we need. When we're ready, the teacher shows up. Sometimes it's a delightful teacher, as Carla was, and I'm so grateful tonight on the eve of Thanksgiving. Carla, thank you, and I feel you're right here with us, cheering us on. Sometimes it's a very harsh teacher, losing someone we love, losing a facility like hearing, having a stroke for Hal, losing my ability to walk for 4 months. Sometimes it's joyful, sometimes it's painful. But we can still say, thank you, teacher. Thank you. What have you come to teach me? This has become such a core question in my life when something comes up that's hard. Thank you, teacher. What have you come to teach me? And this doesn't mean we go along with it. In other words, if I had temporarily lost my hearing, I wouldn't say, well, since deafness came, I guess I'm supposed to stay deaf. If they could have said, well, we can do this treatment that will restore your hearing, great. What has the new hearing come to teach you? Sometimes we can change things, sometimes we can't. But what I'm talking about goes much deeper than acceptance. Acceptance can be a grit your teeth and get on with it. This is really a heartfelt open. What have you come to teach me? I learned so much this summer in those thousands of hours of meditation. And it's changed me. It's softened me. It's opened my heart. It's led me to deeper compassion. I can't say I'm delighted that I had this foot infection this summer. If it had not been for the infection, something else would have pushed me to stop, because I was running faster and faster, and I needed to stop. Stopping, being present with things just as they are, pleasant and unpleasant, beautiful and terrifying, being present, and finding how awake we are and how loving we are. Thank you, teacher. So I ask myself, for what am I grateful right now? I ask myself that every morning when I first wake up. For what am I grateful for today? And that does not imply in any way that there are not things I'm sad about or angry about or afraid of. But right there with the sadness, the anger, the fear, there's that which is grateful and willing to be open and present. Okay, Aaron, have I said everything you wanted me to say? He says, yes, thank you. He will come in. He will talk. Love to you all. I'm going to add one more thing here. This past few years since COVID is the first time we've not had our children present for Thanksgiving and grandchildren. No, they live in Seattle and LA and upstate New York, so a distance away. But for so many years, they all tried to come home for Thanksgiving. I know if I had said to any of the three of them, I really need you to come for Thanksgiving, they would have figured it out. This summer taught me not to be afraid of my life, not to be afraid to be alone, because I'm never alone. I don't mean just because of Aaron, but none of us are ever alone. And to be able to say to them, they each said to me, Mom, if you need me, I'll come home. And I said, no, enjoy. I said, I'd love to have you home, but I don't need you to be home. If it's convenient, come home. But 4 days is a very short time to fly all the way across the country. Come another time when you can stay for a week, not just 4 days. Letting go. And there's no pain. I'm perfectly content. Not sure I'd love to have them with me, but I'm perfectly content to just enjoy a quiet day tomorrow with Al. He's probably going to be watching football games, but I'll find something else to do. So the summer dropped the big load of fear away from me. The fear that I had passed years ago, and yet little tendrils of it were still woven into me. So I can really say genuinely, I can't say I'll never be afraid again. I can say I will not be afraid to be afraid. I will not need to fix it if I'm afraid. When the conditions are present, fear will arise. When the conditions cease, it will cease. It's okay. Okay, let me give you Aaron. An aside. I'm grateful for this shirt I'm wearing for the first time. That's lined in this soft Sherpa birthday present. I haven't worn it before. And I love the color. Thank you, universe. My blessings and love to you all. I am Aaron. I love you, and I am so glad to see you gathered here. Thank you for joining us on this night before a holiday. I understand it may have been inconvenient to some of you. You did not come into the human incarnation simply for joy, not to get things, not to hold on to things. There will be joy. There will be enormous joy. And I love the fact that that is so. But there will also be pain and suffering, two different things. As long as you're in a human body, there is sometimes going to be physical, emotional, and mental pain. When you first incarnate and are somewhat asleep, you suffer because there's pain and try to get rid of it. As you wake up, you come to understand the distinction between pain and suffering. And not to be afraid of the pain, not to push it away, and not to hold on to it as a martyr. Instead, you become able to ask yourself, as Barbara stated, what has this pain come to teach you? What has this confusion come to teach you? This grief, this feeling of helplessness, what has it come to teach you? You are spiritual warriors in a vast universe of beings who are striving to awaken. Most have not yet awakened. Some are just starting. There are many levels of consciousness in this universe. Within these vast levels of consciousness, there is also positive, negative, and neutral polarity. Older souls hold the intention to move again and again into an incarnation, if you're human, or into some other level of consciousness, depending on the form, with the intention of raising their polarity, raising their vibration, of living with love. Those, my friend Kuo called them the loyal opposition. Those of a different polarity. They're not bad. They're seeking the same thing you are seeking, but they have not yet graduated to a point of concern for the highest good of all beings, and so live with service to self. They move through the polarities. They move through the various levels, just positive or negative. Third density negative, third density positive, fourth density negative, fourth density positive, and so forth to sixth density. The upper edges of sixth density for the positively polarized being, that being will further awaken into seventh density. However, sixth density negative polarity is a dead end. Because within service to self, there is a proclaimed distinct self and other, a duality. And seventh density is a realm of non-duality, as is eighth. So higher density cannot exist within this realm of duality. The negatively polarized sixth density being must therefore eventually understand that it's hit a dead end. And holding the intention to move into a higher density, it must backtrack all the way back to first or second density and shift its polarity if it wishes to ascend into seventh or eighth density. Those of you who are presently highly positively polarized third density beings, many of you emerging into fourth density, even fifth. Some of you have had this in your ancient history. You have had to do that backtrack. And eventually to understand what non-duality means. When I speak of service to self and service to other, that seems like a duality. Perhaps it's better phrased service only to the self and service to the expanded self, which includes this small self and every other small self, not exclusively this small self. At that point, there is the intention at first of service to all beings because I want to help myself. But gradually that resolves. And there is only intention of service to all beings, and the understanding that there is truly no duality. There is no duality in positive versus negative, because both contain each other. But the positively polarized being has held the commitment to service to all beings, harm to none, while the negatively polarized being is still caught in the limited idea, service only to me, and if others are hurt, so be it. Then we have you, for whom we are grateful. You who have said, yes, I am waking up and I will come into a human incarnation with the intention to truly transcend separation, to live in service to and for the highest good of all beings. And to do that, I am willing to look at those issues that push me back into the small self, such as fear, strong emotions, grief, body pain, wherein you move into and contract into the small self. The word contract here is vital. What we are looking for is expansion. And I bring this up because one of the best paths to expansion is gratitude. We do not practice gratitude to get something out of it. We practice gratitude because ultimately we see there is nothing else we can do. To love each being, however it presents itself, the small spider, the giant redwood, the angry people in the world, to love them all. To love them enough to understand that out of compassion, one must say no. No, you cannot kill each other. No, you cannot destroy the environment. But I don't hate you that you do that. I understand that you have simply not yet learned how to take care of everything and treat it as if it's all God, as if it's all divine. And so each being comes into incarnation over and over again, learning this at ever deeper levels, experiencing pain, experiencing loss, experiencing heavy emotions and confusion, and finding within all of this worldly chaos the heart of light and of love, which exists within the self. Most of you here are very old souls who have come into incarnation many times. Within each incarnation is the intention to move past the old narrow thinking of me, self, separate, and to start to understand how you connect to everything, how you can live in that expanded state of energy, of light, truly cherishing everything, and how you can forgive yourself and others when they do not cherish everything. To forgive does not mean to condone, simply not to blame. You can't blame them. They simply have not yet had the opportunity to learn it. You have to help them. How do we help a group like Hamas, who was out to destroy all Jews? How do we help those from Israel who are out to destroy Palestinians or Palestine? How do we open our hearts to the Russians who would destroy the Ukrainians? How do we open our hearts to Ukraine, who would kill Russians? How do we find compassion? The world, some of you have said to me, Aaron, why was this world designed as it was? With so much killing and pain and loss. The world was designed this way as a teacher. It was never intended to be that Garden of Eden. If you wanted the Garden of Eden, you would have stayed there. Not yet awake, more as a child, living in a paradise in which you had no free will. Everything is given to you. Everything is easy. There is no sense of separation from anything or anyone. And those of you who have asked me, well, why couldn't we stay there? Because free will is vital. If the choices do not come up because you look at A, B, and C and say, I see this would be easy for me, but I have to choose that because it is the best way for everyone. So I'm willing to struggle a bit myself so that all may live with ease and with joy and with freedom. This is such a powerful statement, my friends, of positive polarity. So you came into this incarnation with the intention of boosting positive polarity, first here on Earth and throughout the universe, the multiverses, helping to shift these multiverses into a land, into a place of a positive polarity. This is not a negative statement about negative polarity. We have compassion for those of negative polarity. We hold them in our hearts. But we choose not to live that way, only in service to self, and to be models that it is possible to live in service to all beings, for the highest good of all beings, and harm to none. And in this way, as we persist through the experiences of this world, which is a leader in this work, as we persist, we gradually tip the polarity of the universe and expanding outward of the multiverse. And this is why you have come. You have not come to be comfortable, although that's fun. You have not come just to be happy, although that's fun. You have not come to avoid challenges, although that's fun. You have come to bring in the power of free will to say, I am love. I hold love as center to everything, and I love you. And to bear witness to that through your life, over and over again, as you become more skilled at it. One of the best I don't want to use the word best. One of the most skillful practices is gratitude. When there can be a pain about something, anywhere from the headache or the sprained ankle to the loved one dying, and to deep sickness, to whatever hardships, and you are still able to love, even through the feeling of despair, to allow that love to come through. This is the strongest statement you can make to negative polarity. It's a way of saying, I am love. You are love. And I will not put you out of my heart. And I will not put myself out of my heart. My challenge to you then, and tonight we're going to spend some time with this, is to ask each of you to reflect on what challenge of recent weeks or months or years has been especially difficult for me. And in what way can I say, thank you, teacher? What have you come to teach me? And gain insight into what it has come to teach. You tell me it's too hard, and I don't believe you. It's very hard. Never too hard. Because this is what you took birth for. To grow in this way, to expand the heart center, to truly love one another, and find the divine in everything. This is what you took birth for. Through my many lifetimes, there have, of course, been many challenges. A story that I'll abbreviate here because I've told it at length before. I was wrongly taken prisoner for a crime. In the place where I lived, there was no trial by jury. The lord of the province said, "You're guilty," and I was then sentenced to imprisonment and put into a cell, which was just a hole in the sand. I was given a little area of shade, a stick, 2 sticks with a blanket over them that could shield the sun from me. Food was lowered down to me, and water. I had a bucket for my body wastes, and it was pulled up, not daily. Once every week or two, I was pulled out by a rope. Water was thrown on me to cleanse myself a bit, and then I was lowered back down. No books, no conversation, barely edible food. I was so filled with anger. I was innocent. They would not listen that I was innocent. If the Lord said, "You're guilty," then I was guilty. I spent several years just being angry and putting everybody else away from me. Because I was so angry, nobody wanted to treat me with kindness. It took 2 or 3 years before I really could see I am the one that's creating my suffering. Prior to this happening, my ambition had been to become a monk, to join an order of monks and to live alone, live in silence with my brothers, without conversing, without recreational things, eating simply, just doing spiritual practice. And now I had free time. I did not have to work to feed myself. It was bare food, but it was enough. Everything was provided for me. And instead of using the time for my spiritual practice, I was busy being angry. Finally, I got it. I don't have a choice about being in this hole. I have a choice about how I am going to live with it. And I began to soften, to change. When they lowered my food, I began to talk to them and thank them. When they pulled me up from my bath, I inquired about their families, about their lives. And they found me to be congenial. So they kept me up top a bit longer. They found a bit better food for me. I'm not going to go into all the details. The story is in the archives somewhere. But eventually, I was spending most of my days pulled up, sitting under a tree. They would leave me alone all morning, give me breakfast, and I would meditate and study. And then mid-afternoon, they would pull me up, and I would bathe, and then people who wished to speak to me, to consult with me about their suffering, would come and I would talk. I did not say, I'm the teacher, just, I'm here. I'm happy to help if I can. And so I began to have a very rich life of meditation in the mornings. And then a time to be of service to others in the afternoons. I found that people loved me as I loved them. I ceased to look at what happened to me as misfortune, but to understand the blessing. Because perhaps I never would have become a monk. Perhaps I would. We don't know. But as it was here, I had everything I needed to awaken. And it was such a rich, loving environment. Eventually, someone confessed to the crime. The governor said, "You're free." No apology, but I didn't anticipate one. I had so many friends by that time, 20 years into this. They built me a small shelter near the tree where I used to sit. They continued to bring me food. And I simply became, I won't call me the monk, the old man sitting under the tree. The community protected me, so my mornings were still free for meditation and prayer, and my afternoons for service to others. It was such a blessed life. But of course, those first years I was enraged, and I would never have said thank you. Looking back, I see how blessed I was and how perfect it was. Everything arises out of conditions and ceases when the conditions cease. You are the master of these conditions. You keep trying one way or another to understand the conditions, to hold space for those conditions which bring joy, peace, love, to release those conditions that bring negativity, pain, and suffering. I know many of you very well, and you are getting it. You are waking up. You are learning what brings you joy and ease, not just for the self, but for the world. So many of you have been asking me, Aaron, with all this terrible pain in the world right now, what can we do here from a distance? You cannot uproot the causes of heat there in the Middle East, or in Ukraine and Russia, or in Somalia and other places where it's happened. You can only uproot, understand, and release the causes of heat in yourself. You can only find what counterbalances such a negative emotion within yourself and bring it forth. But when you bring forth gratitude, ease, joy, compassion, patience, generosity, when you bring these forth, they move out into the world and they do change the world. Have you ever had the experience to come into a room where people were agitated? And perhaps you or another person in the room was centered and peaceful, able not to participate in the agitation, nor to try to stop it, not to say, be quiet, but just to listen and hold space. If you've had that experience, you have seen how eventually the energy settled down because there was one person present who could hold the space. So I say this, and people say, but Aaron, that's not doing anything across the world. But of course it is. This is one world, furthermore, one universe, one multiverse. Each person whose heart opens with love, each person who learns a bit more about being non-reactive, changes everything. This is the gift you have brought into the incarnation. And I so love you for it. I love your courage and your patience. I love your willingness to go out there again and again and work with harsh conditions with an intention to ease the suffering of all beings, to bring love. My beloved friend Yeshua, he'll talk more at the December Aaron night when Yeshua and I will talk in dialogue. But this is why he came to the earth. He came to teach you about your capacity for love, regardless of the harshness of conditions. And also the possibility of a compassion for yourself when you feel unable, when you feel unable to love. Both sides are vital to this. To trust your capacity for love and to understand the power of compassion. What I'd like to do now is to ask you each to sit for 5 minutes reflecting on what is one thing within your present life that has been a big challenge and where your heart is somewhat closed. And how can you say thank you to this challenge? It might be physical, emotional, relationship challenge, a physical body challenge, the loss of a loved one, whatever it may be. In what way can I genuinely bring my hands together and say, thank you, teacher? You have to ask the next question. What have you come to teach me? You may not know the answer yet, but you ask, what have you come to teach me? And then you begin to hear the answer, to understand the answer. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes of silence, and then I'm going to invite you to speak into the silence as you wish. I am out. This is Barbara. Aaron will come back if there is a need. A related question that comes to me, this is Barbara, is how do we not take sides? People have been asking me for this past month, which side do I think is right, the Palestinians or the Israelis? Neither side is right, neither side is wrong. Two groups of people, each in deep pain. The question for me is, with this two groups and anywhere in the world, how can we really learn to hear each other? And as Aaron was suggesting before, that our energy does change things in the world. When I can hear other people, that has an effect. If I can hear my neighbor who might be angry with me, somehow that energy moves off onto the other side of the world. Just open the possibility of listening, deep listening to each other. The only way we're going to heal this world is truly through learning to love each other. One moment. Yeshua would like to come in and speak very briefly. My blessings to you all. I am Yeshua. I greet you with deep love. Barbara's tired, so I will keep this brief. But it felt like an important opportunity because many of you have asked me, how did I not heed those who crucified? How did I not heed those who heeded me? You have to make up your mind. Have you come to this incarnation to practice love or to practice hate? Hate is a habit grounded in fear. When you recognize mindfully the conditions for it are arising in me, and you open your heart compassionately to yourself, those conditions resolve. Love is the only ultimate reality. When I say love one another, I don't mean put on a mask of love, but open your hearts to that ultimate essence of love that pours out through you, each of you. You are the messenger of love, and you have this capability. But if the self is feeling angry, afraid, in pain, then the love must first come to yourself. Compassion for yourself, that this fear, these uncomfortable emotions are present. So you need to bring that love to yourself in order to love others. If it's only a facsimile of loving yourself, a pretense, then it only is a pretense of loving others also, and others can feel that it's not genuine. How do you cherish yourself? How do you cherish yourself, including the difficult mind and body states that are part of being human? You acknowledged the intention to move into an incarnation. So, of course, there are going to be difficult mind and body states, and these are not bad, nor to be fixed, but to be treated with compassion. And you, my dear ones, are the masters of compassion. If you will just allow it to open in yourselves. I am Yeshua. I leave the body. I want to offer my love to all of you and my thanks to all of you who have had the courage to come into incarnation, to be human, to live the love of our divine essence, of the Mother, Father, Creator, to live that love in the world. You tell me, I can't do it, but you are doing it. You fall short, of course you do. You're here as a human. Even I could not do it to any perfection. At times I was angry, felt anger and wanted to hurt, but I did not act that out, and neither do most of you. Give yourself some credit for that. Aaron is going to come in and just say good night here. I am Aaron. My love to all of you, and we'll close the session now. Thank you for being with us tonight. My love to you all. May you be happy and celebrate all that you have to be thankful for. Be thankful for this humanness, which is so precious, such a great gift. I am Aaron. Thank you, Aaron. This is Barbara. Happy Thanksgiving. A reminder, I offer these evenings on a Dana basis. You are always welcome freely. Your donations help to support me, keep me alive and with a roof over my head. So thank you. Much love to you. Enjoy your turkey or tofu or whatever it is you're eating. Love to you and good night.